Let me tell you the story about how I own this book by Howard Hendricks, Teaching to Change Lives. Well, when I was an undergraduate student, I was studying teaching education, not so much for the classroom to teach math and English, but because I was interested in teaching outside of the typical classroom, teaching in churches, teaching in life. I had learned enough about it to think this might actually really help. Well, at the same time, I was working at a bookstore, and this bookstore had a second store just 2 blocks down, no, just 2 stores down. And there they had all their overstock books, discount books. It was a whole store full of books that were, well, I guess they had trouble selling, and therefore they had to put big reduced prices on them. Well, hardly anybody ever went in there, and so I'd have these 8-hour shifts in which I only had 4 customers or something. And in my boredom, I would go around and look at the books that were there, and that's how I found this book by Howard Hendricks. Now, Howard Hendricks was a teacher at Dallas Theological, had a reputation for being a very good storyteller, a very engaging classroom instructor. And this book, I did read at least a lot of it, has different laws of teaching, but what stuck with me all this time is the title, Teaching to Change Lives. And that just seemed to me like, for all the bad news you hear about education, the suffering that people go through just to get through this, the expense, it seemed like that title got to the core of why we put ourselves through finding teachers or becoming teachers, because we have this hope that teaching might actually change some lives. Hey everybody, welcome to the Sanctus Forum. I am Michael Stewart-Robb. Everybody calls me Mike, however, and I am standing in a different part of the room. I'm standing in the window part of the room, the bright part of the room, because I gotta switch things up sometimes. It gets a little boring doing things always from the same area. And sometimes, honestly, it gets a little boring talking about Dallas Willard and the Divine Conspiracy. This is Conspiracy Commentaries, where we talk about this book, a very important book, just incrementally, just very low and slow. And today we're talking about why Jesus teaches in this manner. It's in a whole chapter on the Beatitudes. Beatitudes are from Jesus, one of the world's best teachers. And Dallas Willard is also one of the 20th century's best teachers. In this section, he says the whole point of Jesus's teaching, the whole point of what teachers were about back then was to impact the lives of their hearers. The whole point was to interrupt the flow of their life and to make them think differently about things, but also to live differently about things. And in this section, he kind of takes us into the history of this time, which is extremely important. I'm reminded again, and I've said it before in these videos, that we cannot Lectio Divina our way through the Bible. We have to know some history, not tons, and we have to depend on people who help us understand the history of the Bible. Otherwise, we won't get it. One of the historical things that Dallas Willard wants to convey here is that back then, this whole idea of teachers being people who conveyed information, mere information, and students being people who just absorbed information and who memorized information, that is just the false picture of what education was back then. The whole teacher-student relationship was, I guess you could say, moral, ethical. The whole idea was that a teacher was somebody who was going to help you change your life. And if you weren't interested in life change, if you weren't interested in your life being better or going in a different direction, then you would probably stay away from teachers. Teachers just wouldn't be the sort of people that you would want to hang around. But I think we need to remember why Dallas Willard is on this. Why is he telling us about how Jesus taught or how teachers taught back then? And the whole point is to give us a new image of what the Beatitudes are about. We read the Beatitudes in our information age society and think that Jesus is giving us a list rather than taking cases of people and using these cases to show that a general assumption is wrong. That's the whole argument that Dallas Willard is making here, and the reason why he's getting into the nitty-gritty about how teachers back then taught, and why he's saying, look, people didn't really write things down. They didn't have tape recorders. That wasn't what they were interested in. They were interested in teachers saying things that really stuck. And that's why we have the Beatitudes that we have, because Jesus is teaching in that sort of way. Now let's get a quote on this. The secret of the great teacher is to speak words to foster experiences that impact the active flow of the hearer's life. Now, when I was a young person, when I was first thinking about what teaching could be, this idea that teaching could really change things in the world, could change people's lives, that was incredibly attractive to me. And I saw it in Jesus. I saw it in some of the teachers that I had who did teach in this kind of way. And just as a word to all of you out there who are teachers, maybe you aren't called that, but you have a kind of calling or vocation to speak to others. Maybe that's not in front of a classroom. Maybe you're always seated with a cup of coffee in front of you. But this is what teaching is about. Teaching is about finding ways to say things that get into people's minds and hearts, that help them look at their lives in a new way and get onto a better path. And honestly, I think we need to look at how we do, well, churches have sermons, and I think we need to look at how we do sermons, because so many of them really don't have any impact on people's lives. I think we need to think about, well, maybe we've been doing it in the wrong way. Maybe we haven't learned enough from Jesus or from the great teachers and preachers who we've had. But do think about whether you're a preacher or whether you're some speaker, teacher. What are you doing? What's the point? Why are you there? And are you there to impact lives, to change lives? And then for the rest of us, so for all of us, really, Dallas says here at the end that really we all have the role of showing others the presence of the kingdom in the concrete details of our shared existence. And that is how we impact the lives and the hearts of our hearers. And this gets back into what we've been talking about for the past videos of how important it is for this stuff to get into the concrete, the ordinary, the sacramental, the incarnational corners of our lives, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. That's really where people can see, oh, okay, this Jesus stuff actually is real. It actually has a grip on our reality. It's not just more beautiful words by smiling, glowing people. Hey, I hope you have a wonderful, great day and week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.